Hi, and welcome to the Senior Network. I'm your host, Greg Fulton, and I am here today with Darlene Schutz from the Hospice Care of the Lowcountry.
Hello.
Hi, and Heather Flowers with Right at Home, and Jim Keith with Keith's Funeral Home. Glad to have you folks today. Thanks so much for joining us. Right before the show, we were talking about maybe not such a pleasant topic, but I think it's important that we talk about it in the senior care community. That was the hurricane that we just experienced, Hurricane Matthew. And Darlene, you were mentioning some of the things that you guys did and prepared ahead of time. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, everywhere I've gone in the community in the last week, people have not asked me about how my house is. They've asked me about what we did with the hospice patients. So, it's interesting. We pre-plan, as I'm sure you guys do it right at home. We file an emergency plan with DHEC, with the state, with the county. So we pre-plan, and when we start admitting patients during this season, our social workers, our nurse case managers really go into detail with the families. What would you do? If this happens, what are your plans? Let's help to get a plan in place so that if it does happen, we can move smoothly through the process. A lot of people become lethargic. We've been here for years, and they say, oh, I'm not going anywhere, I'm not going anywhere. So when the evacuation order came, we were with those patients calling, contacting, and saying, okay, remember we talked about this, what are we going to do? And so it's a lot of phone calls.
Now, Darlene, do you folks actually help with the transferring or moving of the patient elsewhere, or does the family do all that?
Both.
Okay.
We make contracts with other hospices inland. So if you were moving your family to Columbia or to Charlotte, we have a contract in place with other hospices so that we still have the patient, but we are paying that other hospice for visits or whatever else. And we set up a 2-week supply of medications, equipment, everything they need. And for those patients who are bedbound, we have to find an inpatient facility somewhere. And for the ones who are not as mobile, we have to get a contract with an ambulance service to bring them to where they need to go. And then we follow up the entire time. So while we're evacuated and dealing with our families, we're still calling and checking in. The other hospices are calling us and asking us, questions for how to treat the patient. So it's a process.
And I can just thinking through that, the process of actually the re-entry and getting everyone back in place seems to be just as challenging.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, and we had, Wednesday morning, we had patients calling us and saying, we were going to sit it out, we've changed our mind. And now we're scrambling. As I said, we're packing up our own vehicles and saying, where are we going? And we're scrambling to make it happen for them. Luckily, we were able to. We had a patient on Defusky. So it's a lot that goes into it that people don't realize, And
I think a lot of us, me being the first time here through this process, learned a lot. We really did. And I know, Heather, you obviously with Right at Home, you folks are in kind of the same situation, right?
Absolutely. We called every caregiver that was directly connected with a client to make sure that they had a plan in place, and we called every client to be sure that there was a plan so that nobody got forgotten.
Yeah. And I think, too, people, as I said earlier, become lethargic. You've been here for years. Sure. You've gone through so many evacuations and nothing's ever happened. And you become really lethargic. And, we explain there's not going to be, EMS is not going to be here. You're not going to have the hospital. It's a scary situation. And then you're not going to have, electricity. It's going to be difficult. So it's hard, I know myself, I contemplated staying, and my son said, what if something happens to the dog? And I was like, I'm out of here. Nothing can happen to my dog. Yeah.
Well, and I think we all, especially me, experienced just, a level 2, what a bigger hurricane would be like. And I think we're very fortunate, though, considering. We're very fortunate. I know that at Right at Home, We've basically gotten all of our clients and patients back now and back in their homes. There's a few that didn't get to come back, but most all in all. What about Keith? How was the funeral home and the situation there?
Well, we stayed.
Yeah.
I actually had a client that I had to watch over, so I didn't really have the option to leave. And my wife and I stayed, and we had plenty of food. We had plenty of water in the bathtubs if the water went out, which it did. Propane for the generators and for the grill, and we were ready. And it wasn't too bad. The storm was bad, but we were prepared, and I had called Hospice and given them my cell phone number just in case my phone went out. But it worked out all right. It was just different.
Yeah, it was definitely different. Like I said, we're very fortunate. I think I was very impressed with just the first responders and how hard the folks around here have worked. And we're still in the process of a lot of cleanup.
Yeah.
I really thought a lot about the seniors who maybe are not on any kind of a service, and what were their plans and how were they dealing with it, you know?
Exactly. And I know there were shelters set up, but if they didn't have a way there, then that was, you know, thank goodness I've not heard of any, you know, bad stories or horror stories when it comes to seniors. I think we all were very lucky, and neighbors pitched in when they knew the situation where there's not a support system and no family around, and made sure that everyone was safe and okay.
Yeah. And I'd like to give a shout out to the Piggly Wiggly, only because they opened on Sunday.
Yeah.
And they were able to get some people in there, and I took some stuff to my neighbors, and it was, I've got to give them some kudos for that.
Awesome. Yeah, very, very good community. Well, we're going to need to take a break. This is the Senior Network. Please stay tuned, and we will be right back.